Usually we only find our astro twins, someone born the same time as us. Sometimes it's most likely that if we're going to run into that, we run into it in school, someone that's born at the same time, because we're with people our own age group. But they would have the same charts as you. But people who have the same charts, they often can work it differently. They have the same basic attitudes, but they deal with specifics different ways. I've met 5 people born the same day, same year as me. And 4 are professional astrologers that I've met while being in tops of American organizations and some of the bigger organizations of astrology when I was part of them. I met other people who were part of them doing the same role as me, and we had the same charts. So it was interesting when we all got together. We all felt relieved at being together, but we're also competitive. None of us were exactly comfortable with each other. We just had our own style of doing things. But there are sites online, places where you can try and find your astro twins. And it's worth looking up to see who's born the same day, same year as you. You know, like, who's one of my astro twins? Suzanne Summers. So if I'd have been a girl, I'd have been a special. She has her intensity too. Doesn't exactly fit into places. And but you can, there's a whole area we can study and follow these things. Mostly, you're just starting. You're doing your charts of people. You're going to look at you're going to have your mom, your dad, your husband or partner, maybe your kids, maybe a few friends. You're going to have 5 or 10 charts, maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe 10. That's about maximum. You're going to be your intimate ones that you're always looking at. And you're always applying all these things that you know for you, and then you see for the people closest to you. And your family, you see how, because you know how they were different. And that's really useful in getting your basic foundation. Then you're going to, that's the inner circle. Then you're going to have a secondary circle of maybe 50, 25, 100 people that are sort of associates you've run across. You're always adding to it, looking at it, curious about it. You're never going to do all the depth in their chart. You're going to look at certain things, okay, and see what you can see. Then you're going to have, then you have famous people, other people, that the rest of the world's charts that you can go and pick and choose from to look and see what they have. The real work is still just being yourself, trying to make as much of each planet as you can, trying to make each planet grow as much as it can, and learn from it and experience it. And we got 90 years to do this, and then it's done. So, wow. Against that background of how much time we have in life, when you're looking at bigger cycles like the world and things, a lifetime's nothing. But when you're living it, it's everything. I mean, waiting 2 years, oh, you'll get the other job, it'll be lucky, just wait 2 years, or wait 4 years, no problem. Well, waiting 4 years is a problem. Waiting a year can be a problem, especially if you got Mars, Uranus. Someone with Mars, Saturn might wait easier than someone with Mars, Uranus. So all of these things, there's a common sense to it. It's not, words don't define it. Colors would define it better. Energy would define it better. So it's easy to see stressful aspect, non-stressful aspect. And even with the stressful aspect, you're trying to make each planet work good. And as you make each one work better, your life gets better. But also, as you make each one get better, the stress factors evolve too and change too. But they'll still be there. So when you look at your chart and see a whole bunch of stressful factors, you don't say, oh God, I may as well write my life off because of that. No, most people with stress factors accomplish things. People that have no stress factors can be the laziest people in the world, and they never accomplish much. So the stress isn't the wrong thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a healing thing. It's a healthy thing. And when we're working with a chart, we're channeling into the different layers or different types of stress, the different manners that stress come in, and we're trying to apply it so we see how people can use these stress factors and make them work in their favor. So sometimes you have to counter some of the negative. Sometimes you just have to twist it to work a little bit towards the positive, but you get ideas how someone can apply this to their life and make it a little bit better. If they make it a little bit better, you did a healing session. Even one thing a little bit better was a good thing. You don't have to heal everything. Usually we pick up the main things that are going on and we have to try and work with a problem, but at the same time there's always the undercurrent of how you're healing that person, how you're helping that person become more of themselves, to integrate their matrix a little bit better. So the pattern of our chart and our basic horoscope is our DNA that we start with. then it evolves and grows and spins around. And as it spins around, we're mutating and evolving it. And their life is a total creative puzzle. It's a great mystery. There's outer development, inner development. There's so many ways this can go. You don't want to get rigid and saying, defining any aspect as a specific thing. You're tuning into certain types of energy, and then you're observing how people use it and how they're experiencing it. And sometimes someone's using it wrong and you can't reach them. You see it, they can't hear you. Sometimes they hear you clearly, but you recognize the energy. It gives you an advantage to deal with it, or put some perspective on it, rather than, for me, my understanding before I knew astrology wasn't as communal, or wasn't able to tune into other people as well, or even to myself as well as since I've learned it. It's made a huge difference for me. Changed my life. Of course, I was going for chemistry, math in university. The family split up. I dropped off and I took off and started writing poetry in Greenwich Village, Haight-Ashbury, traveling around and not doing anything. But then poetry came in, then astrology came in, then mysticism came in. All these things came in, and my life went that way. It's not the normal way, but it happened. And astrology was one of the first things, first time I had a chart done. My reaction was, you mean I'm supposed to be like this? And it was such an affirmation. All my life I was, don't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. You're not allowed to sing, you're no good, you can't do this, you can't do that. All these things would come in, and they weren't true, they were just people's judgments. So really, when we're doing an astrology chart, it shouldn't be called the astrological judgment. It shouldn't be called, I'm interpreting your horoscope. It should be, I'm giving you my opinion of what seems to be important in your horoscope. And your opinion is good. A good opinion when it's based on these things. It's based on a higher knowledge. But if you're just saying, well, I'm just giving you my opinion, if someone doesn't like it, well, you don't like my opinion. You came and you asked for my opinion. I gave you my opinion. It's different than saying, this is where it's going and this is how you have to live. That's much more invasive and a poorer use of astrology. So okay, I'm just got a question here. I'm just gonna, from Brigitte, I'm just gonna look at. I get it big enough to see it. Okay, Mars in conjunct Jupiter, 3rd to the 8th. What does it mean? Okay, when you're getting specific, I would ignore the in conjunct. It just means there's a sensitivity there. It's not as big as a conjunction. Some people read into in conjuncts 150 degrees. That's a big deal. It's not a big deal. If you run into that, you'd have to use 30-degree aspects as just a bigger deal. It only seems like a big deal because the line goes right across the chart if you draw it in. But it's not. It's just before you complete something in an opposition and you become complete the awareness. There's a tendency to go off a little bit before it's completed, to not quite reach the completed vision. I'm almost there, I see it, and then you space out a little bit, you go on tangents. So the ability to go off on tangents. So if Mars is conjunct Jupiter, if you want to read the aspect in, you would say, well, there's a tendency to, I have my understanding, the teacher is teaching me how to take actions, and just when I set it up, just so I'm almost completed, it's almost together, I go on a tangent, I go off to something else. It's not always necessarily completed. So I wouldn't read it in as good or bad or anything. It's not as intense as a square, or conjunction, or an opposition. All the minor aspects, lots of aspects are there. They're not as extreme, but it's still, everyone between Mars and Jupiter has their guidance to their action, their principles, their morals, and what they understand is right or wrong, and how to live by it. So if there's any aspect, that would be the challenge of Jupiter coming into effect to Mars. And in your case, again, Mars is in your 3rd house. So if Mars is in your 3rd house, again, this is difficult when you're doing one planet at a time. It's still good to see the whole chart because you see where the sun is, you see where the moon is. You can get some peripheral vision into it as well, not just linearly define it. But so from 3rd to the 8th, it just means that Jupiter sees from the 8th house, sees how to align with other people and how to get a social sense of how to benefit or how to put things. Good for business, good for sharing, good for trust. And it's guiding the Mars' action, which is, what am I doing? How am I going to express myself? How am I going to act on my own ideas? How do I instigate something? That's that rising Mars in the third house. How do I act on my motives? You try and act on your motives, what motivates you. But your Jupiter is trying to guide you to what needs to be done to make the best of the team, or best of the partnership, or best of your connection with other people. So you have a socially conscious Jupiter that's trying to guide an individually activated Mars. And often your ideas of what you want to do don't exactly fit in. So that's true for everyone, but I'm just working on this specific aspect. You can after you see the aspect and the stress, then you can see the third to the eighth and work on it a little bit to see how the eighth house Jupiter is influencing or trying to guide the third house Mars. You know, so a negative example would be if you suddenly decided to go out and bought yourself a really expensive sports car. I just got it. I wanted it. Then you have to explain it to the partner, but the partner says, whoa, you didn't even talk to me. What happened? Like, there could be that understanding of what the other partner wants. What am I doing? What do I need to do for the partner? How do I fit in? It's eighth house, how to share. So the understanding of how to share, how people come together, there's a social conscience in that eighth house too. What's right, what's wrong, what's trustworthy, what's not. Guiding, and Jupiter's trying to guide one's actions, one's desires. So the desires aren't always going the same way as Jupiter, but it's not necessarily a bad relationship. That's just the way your Jupiter would think would be through eighth house and the sign, and it would then pick up those attitudes and try and influence the Mars, which is going on its sign in its third house. So that can bring up, oh, geez. You can be doing a lot of traveling. It can be things with brothers and sisters, but it's also based on who's getting what inheritance, what money, what things are going on, what's there. And it's Jupiter's trying to convince you to align with its principles more than doing your own thing. Of course, Jupiter has to be linked up to Saturn. So this is how I work it. It's a good question. That's just, it's a matter of common sense around it. So what I'm saying, be alert to the ones that are stressful. The other ones will sit there. You can, when you're going to the planets and houses, you'll see how Jupiter is in the eighth house. And once you understand that, you'll see how that's influencing the Mars, which is trying to be itself in the third house. That's just simple. You just don't have to make it overly stressful between the two, because it is not. So I hope that answers that. Does anyone else have any questions? We've got another 10, 15 minutes or so.